Thanks for inviting me to speak on this really amazing panel of amazing people. So I didn't really know what to talk about today, so I wrote this thing, and there are a million different things that I feel like I could be talking about in this meeting, so hopefully this is something meaningful. It's mostly about Occupy Wall Street, which is the thing that I've been working on for the last 6 months, pretty much, and it is a really confusing thing, so I'm going to try to maybe shed some light on it, or maybe, I don't know. So I believe that Occupy Wall Street has come out of a history of people's struggle, a deep history of people's struggle in this country and around the world. And a lot of the time, it kind of looks like it came out of a vacuum, but I don't think that's true. I think that it's come out of the influence and the knowledge and the history of people's struggle. And so Occupy Wall Street and the Occupy movement in general are not really coming up with new ideas so much as popularizing or repopularizing and rethinking older ideas and older tactics and strategies that we've learned from the past, from past movements and current movements from all over the world and throughout time, and practicing them in ways that bring us up against the system in order to expose it. And I feel like that is the main thing that the Occupy movement's been doing for the last few months. And there are a lot of examples of that, and the Occupy movement is a movement of movements, and it's impossible to be involved with or aware of everything that's going on at one time, because there's everything from a direct action campaign that plans to completely obliterate the Bank of America, to an Occupy Theory magazine, which you can get copies of on the back table, to daily door knocking in East Flatbush, people just cold knocking, "Hi, I'm from Occupy Wall Street, what's your name?" To creating an Occupy farm in upstate New York. Hundreds and hundreds of projects going on all the time, and taking the Occupy movement in hundreds of different directions, not all of which are always in harmony with one another. And politically, as you may have noticed, the Occupy movement has not that much unity within it. On the surface, it looks like infighting between anarchists and reformists, but actually inside it, it's way deeper than that. The real internal struggles are the same as the external struggles, which are against racism, patriarchy, colonialism, and so much more, all within a class analysis that says it's against the 1%. So when I attempt to synthesize my experience with Occupy Wall Street so far, it's really hard to know where to begin. Last month, I went on the Occu trip for a week, which was a road trip all over the Northeast in a pea green school bus with a makeshift toilet in the back and a bed, and slogans all over the sides of it that said things like "all cops are bastards," which was a little scary driving around the Northeast. Kind of a target. We never got pulled over. I don't know. So I was only on it for a week. It was a 5-week-long road trip, and we just kind of rambled around the Northeast to different occupies. And in Syracuse, a woman said to me, "We know all you New York City people think of us upstate as hillbillies." And I'm not originally from New York, so I was like, no. But then that night, several people that were on the trip with me were brought to tears by racist, nationalist, sexist things that some people said. And they just couldn't believe that it was others in the Occupy movement that said things that were so blatantly hurtful to them. But the thing is that that's much of America. So the question was, are we in the same movement as these people that made us cry? And if so, why? And what are we fighting for? So Occupy Wall Street, or the Occupy movement as a whole, is vaguely fighting against wealth inequality, but is it anti-capitalist? And what can anti-capitalist mean if it's not anti-racist and anti-imperialist and anti-oppression? So there are a lot of us asking those questions and attempting to fit Occupy Wall Street into a larger people's struggle, while meanwhile attracting more people into a broad-based movement against capitalism, racism, sexism, and imperialism. So one powerful tool that I've recently been exposed to, but that has a rich history in people's struggles, is mutual aid, and creating new ways of taking care of each other. And that's one way of practicing noncompliance with the system. But because all of us are coming from different backgrounds and different privileges, it often turns into just providing services rather than mutual aid and rather than truly supporting one another. But I don't know if the state can really tell the difference. And so, for example, in the People's Kitchen during the occupation, we were feeding thousands of people every day. But it was a small group of people cooking and serving, and then thousands of people eating. But that was still so threatening to the ruling class and to the state. And I think that that was one of the most threatening things that the Occupy movement has done, is feed people. And when the Panthers had a free breakfast program for children, J. Edgar Hoover said something to the effect of that was the biggest security threat in this country. And that is an often referenced quote in the Occupy movement. People talk about it all the time. And then also there's the specter of nothing to lose. I mean, there are so many people, and granted most of them are young, and many of them are white, and many of them come from privileged backgrounds, that just dropped everything, I mean, so many people don't have a family anymore because they came to Liberty Plaza last fall, and so many people have lost so many friends and relationships because they did that, which I don't think is something that's talked about very often. But I think that the people involved in the Occupy movement are exuding a feeling of nothing to lose, which is really threatening to the ruling class, because it means that we could do anything. So, I don't know, I think that the energy and the determination within the Occupy movement are immense, but I think that it only becomes a true threat to power when it exists in true solidarity with other people's movements around the world. And yeah. So that's the question for many of us within Occupy right now, is how do we build this Occupy movement, which is full of imaginative tactics and energy and ideas, new and old, and a class-conscious message. I mean, the main message of Occupy Wall Street calls out the 1%, which is not, I don't think that actually has happened in a mass movement in this country before. And so that's something. But how do we have this movement within and alongside people's movements around the world to end oppression? That's the question. Thanks.